Start recording. Okay, so if I go back to that scene that I had, so let's just take a look at a couple of the things. So let me look for the background here. Background. Okay, so the background has this texture scrolling script, which I have and I can give it to you. And if we look at the script, you can see that it has two public variables, scroll speed X, scroll speed Y. So that allows me to scroll both left and right and up and down. And let's have a look at the script and hopefully we'll be able to understand what it's doing. So those are the two public variables that I declared, scroll speed X, scroll speed Y. I'm obviously going to use them for the scroll speed in the X direction and the scroll speed in the Y direction. And then I have an offset X and an offset Y. These are private. So you don't have to say private. If you want something to be private, you can just go float whatever it is, and Unity will accept that as that's private. What I'm doing at the start, there's a component in every, it's not a sprite what I'm using, because I'm using something called a quad. Let me show that in Unity. So the background, let me see if I can make a copy of this and just move it away. So, oh, sorry. That is something called a quad. Let me make it it's still a 3D, sorry, it's a 3D object, but it's like a flat, completely perfect flat 3D object. So if I look at the sprites from behind, they're still rendered because they're sprites. Sprites are just like 2D images. Quad is something called a polygon. It's a 3D thing, and by default, polygons only render one side. Okay, so they only render one side of the face. So if I swap back to 2D, so that's a quad. The reason why I have a quad is instead of a sprite, it uses something called a mesh renderer. So everything you see in a 3D game, when you play a 3D game, they're all polygons and they all use some form of mesh renderer. A mesh is like the 3D, the polygon shape itself. In my case, it's literally just a square, but it can be like an entire character or a sphere or whatever it is. So that's the mesh. The mesh renderer controls how that mesh displays. And then there's a collider. If you need a collider, I don't know why I have a collider, to be honest. I don't need a collider on it. And what this script does is it accesses the renderer, and it does a thing. Let me see. It does this like texture offset. And a texture offset, let me see if I can do it manually. This is what a texture offset does. So when I have the renderer, it uses a material. A material goes into the 3D object to tell it how to look. We'll see this more in third year, but like you can control like metallicity and like the smoothness of it. You can see it changing, and that's how like things look metallic, or they look like skin, or they look like they have surface detail. In 3D modeling later in third year, that we'll cover all of that stuff. We might cover it later, even in tools. I'm sure in tools you'll cover it as well, which will be next semester, next year. But either way, what I can also do is I can change the offset. So that's the offset. Right now I'm manually doing that. So what that allows me to do is just literally just scroll it. So if I had a texture on it, I could be like, no, I want it to be a little bit off to the side, and that's literally what I'm doing manually. What the script does, let's go have a look at it. What it does is it offsets it by time. In this case, it's by time. So literally just over time, it's just going to slowly scroll that in the X and the Y direction. Okay, so let's see how that looks like. I press play. So have a look at this quad here. So you see that moving really slowly? Let me make it faster. I think it's this one. So I can scroll speed by like 0.3 and 0.3, and it's just time. All this is doing is just over time. So what I'm doing with this, if you look at here, it's very subtle. You almost don't notice it. I'm making it as if like there is a background kind of cloud that's slowly moving in the background. You almost don't notice it, but it's like a nice little touch as opposed to completely static background. You can even do things which are a little more like advanced. Like you can take the position of the player, for example, and based on whether the player is moving left or right, you then scroll the texture left or right. And that's how you get parallax backgrounds, if anyone knows parallax backgrounds. where like things that are far away move slower, things that are close to you move faster, and you can do that using basically the same script, but you modify it. So instead of here controlling it by time, you would do it by player position. So you would grab the X and Y position of the player and then move the offset accordingly. But just for this, because I know that's a little bit more complex for your coding background at the moment, this one just does it by time. So you can see like time.time, that's just a Unity thing. That means time. It's literally as time goes on. And I'm multiplying it by the scroll speed X and also time.time multiplied by the scroll speed Y. That's all it's doing. And I'm just telling the renderer to just continuously update that. Does that make sense? Yep. Okay, so that's that. We also have a thing. If I press play and let me zoom in here. So where the character moves, you see that, those little bursts? So I have these butterfly thingies, they're an animation. So they just animate and do that. So you can see that continuously resets, the same thing. Same with the leaves, they're just animating and doing really basic like movements. This leaf pile, that is doing a particle effect. So if I run through it, you see it looks like that. Let's have a look at the left one here. And it's always slightly different, like a little bit. It's not exactly the same each time. And that's because that's not an animation. That is a particle system. And a particle system, let's go have a look at it. Leaves on floor. Triangle. This leaf on floor? I don't know which one that one is. Oops. Is that a leaf? No, that's a triangle. Where is the leaves? I don't know where they are. Because I'm silly. Is that where they are? Particle system. Okay, so this, where's that? That's here. Okay, so there's a bunch here. Okay, good. I can go over here. So if I run over there, that works. So what that thing is, it's just a bunch of leaves actually, but it has, I have an empty game object here. That's foreground leaves on floor. That's an empty game object. It has a collider. So this is the collider radius, and it's a trigger, and it has a really simple trigger script, which I can open again. Takes a while. Is that opening? Oh no. Okay. And I'm using the same trigger that I showed you before. And in this case, I'm calling a particle animation. Okay. So where is, wait, no, that's leaves as well. Where's my part? Oh, here's the particle system. Here. And the animation that I'm doing, I'm going kind of a cheap trick. Where's the animator? Here. Let me show the animation, what it's doing. All it's doing is setting this particle system here to enabled or disabled. So let me make it active. And that's all, sorry, active. All it's doing is setting that, this particle system, you see that here? You see the way it's grayed out? So that's disabled. All the animation is doing is like enabling that and then disabling it. When it goes back to idle, it just disables it. So it's a cheap trick. You can also do it in code. You can also do like particle system dot play true, and you can set that as well, and then you can do it. So there's multiple ways of doing stuff in programming. That's one of the confusing things about programming. As you get more into it, there's no one right way. There's loads of different ways to do things. So someone telling you to do a certain way is just like, oh, do it this way, doesn't mean that's the only way. So I've done it a way that's like easier because you know how the animator works, but you can also do it in code. You can access the particle system and tell the particle system to play. So what is a particle system? Let me make a brand new one, and I'll do it in my test scene. Actually, can I just talk a little bit more about the level while I'm here, and then I'll do the particle system separately. Is that okay? So just FYI for this level, these are all, we saw the tile map. We saw like where you had a tile that you could tile stuff on and just draw like the tile map and build the level that way. This is slightly different. This is a modular level. So this is made up of, oh no, sorry, it's here, sprites here. So let me open this, and you can see these are the set. That's like one texture, one sprite, sorry, and these are all sprites within that sprite, and these are all the building blocks for the entire level. I have them white, so there's a reason for that. in Unity, if I tint something a certain color, if it's white, it'll be like perfectly exactly that color tinted. If it is a colored, if it already has like pink on it or something, and I tint it like green, it'll be a weird like mishmash. It won't go green. It'll be pink tinted green. So it's slightly different. That's why I have it white so I can tint it. The problem with having it pure white is that I can only tint it a solid color. So I have variations. Oh, you can't really see it here. I can see it better on mine. You can't see it at all. They have like blotches of like slightly darker areas. So it'll be like pink, slightly darker pink, slightly lighter pink, but they'll all be pink. I won't be able to get like a hue change. I won't be like pink and blue and whatever. If I want something like that, I'll have to paint it in. So I have that here as pure white. I also have this background decor stuff. So these are all separate sprites as well. And if you look at the level, hopefully you can see I've been kind of smart about it. So I've done like these are the hanging leaves, and the ones that are further back, I made them darker so they look like they're further away. Same with the ones up here, they're bigger. I just scaled them up way bigger, and made them really dark when they're really close to the foreground, and slightly darker. So they look like they're completely different, but actually they're the same exact sprite. I even did stuff like the background trees are reused as vines here. So these kind of look like vines, so in the background they kind of look like trees. I reused them. I can change different colors on them as well. And the same with all these leaves. They're all the same leaf. I think I only have one leaf. Yeah, I literally only have one leaf. And they're all built out of the same leaves. They're just tinted slightly different colors. Same with all of these. Everything is just tinted slightly different colors to make it look like it's different colored leaves. But really, I'm using the same. So you'll see that a lot in games. You'll see like especially older games are good to look at. Like stuff like Skyrim is fantastic to look at because they were almost too lazy as devs. So the dungeons, especially if you play Skyrim, they look like they're all the same because they're made up of the same assets and they're just reused. So they'll use like a staircase and like duplicate it to make a longer staircase, and it's just the same kind of stuff. So the same things happens in 3D. It just means that this entire level I can build out of like 3 sprites. Or if you want to count this thing, that's just like a nice overlay. You can kind of see it over here. It's just a transparent overlay. But technically the entire level is just like these 3 sprites, and I've built the whole thing out of it. So I don't have to make the entire level from scratch, if that makes sense. Any questions on this before I start doing particle systems? We're all good? Did I go too fast? On there? This block thing? Yeah. Oh yeah, I mean that's a good one, yeah. So thanks for that. So that big door is built up of like this block and those 2 pillars. Has like this archway. So it's actually like all these archway pieces, and I just reuse them to build the yeah. Yes. Oh, can you? Okay. And here's like the vases are actually just upside down bells. So the bell is there, and it's like literally just an upside down vase. So you can be kind of, you can get away with pretty cheeky stuff if you're sneaky about it. This one has a sorting issue error. It's gone behind. Should be behind. It's not. And the same with this. I just like replicated them over and over to make a pillar. Just being easy. Just a couple more things while I'm in here. If you can see that these are swaying really slightly, what these have is they have a block, and they have like a little thing. They have a rigid body on them, and they have a weight. And what they have is something called a hinge joint, and a hinge joint allows it to like rotate. Okay, so they're like hinged to this little. Oh, I can't get it. This little. No, I can't get it. Where is it? Hinge to this thing. Yeah, hinge to this. So these are all like linked to each other, and they're all like hanging from like the block. And the bell has like a hinge joint on it. You may also see it's got this thing here. This is a platform effector. So this, instead of like a block for the glider, it has a thing called an edge collider. And an edge collider is just like flat, completely flat. You can see it there, like just this little line. That's the edge collider. So I made an edge glider and I moved it down there so it's like a flat line. It'll block stuff coming from all sides because it's just an edge. But then I added something called a platform effector as a component. So you can just like add components and look for platform effector for Effector 2D. And what a platform effector does, you can use one way, you can control the arc, so it's 180, meaning the whole 180. And this means it only collides with stuff coming in from this side. So if I jump from below, it acts like a platform, it just passes through. And then if I pass through and then hit the ground, it'll like act like a platform. So you know in games, when you jump up to the platform, you can pass through. This is what that does. You used to have to code this in, but there's a thing called a platform effector. You can just use that. Okay? Is that okay? Right. All right. So let's go look at a particle effect real quick. Don't save. And I'll post in that entire level and the entire character for you to look at later. So a particle system is easy enough to make. Let's just create an empty. And let's call this particle system. And a particle system just comes in like is a component, sorry. Particle system. And you see it already doing stuff. Pink in Unity means no texture or like can't find whatever it's looking for. So the particle system by default is a 3D thing. So let me look around at 3D. And you can kind of see that in 2D it looked like it was just spreading out, but actually it's like firing off into the distance in 3D. So that's what it looks like by default because it's meant to be used in a 3D setting. We can use it in 2D. It still looks fine. Oops, is that mine in 2D? Yeah. So what I can do is mess around with these settings, and there's a lot of them, but they're all fairly self-explanatory. So the first thing is the duration. So that's how long it lasts before it loops again. If I turn off loop, this will last for 5 seconds. Let's play. That will last for 5 seconds. 2, 3, 4, 5, and then stop emitting, and it's done. All right. So sometimes you want that. Sometimes you want like a once-off thing, and then it's done. But I have looping on. Sorry. What pre-warm is? So let's restart. No, it's stop. Pre-warm means when I load the scene or when I activate this particle, does it start from nothing and then slowly emit, or does it always look like it's already been emitting? So I have pre-warm on. If I press play, it looks like it's already been emitting. Let's stop. If I pre-warm off, it slowly begins emitting more, and it starts from nothing. Okay. So what you might want that to be is, let's say I open a cave door and all the torches go on. I might want to have pre-warm off, so it looks like they're like opening, bursting into flames. Conversely, if I wanted to like load a level and have everything already lit, as if like they've already been there when I started it, I'd have pre-warm on, so when the level loads, they already look like they've been going. Start delay, delaying the time. Start lifetime, this is how long the particles last. So let me make that 0.01, and they're just gonna die. Oh, maybe that's too short. So you see they die like really quickly. That's all that is. You can also scroll that longer and shorter. The other thing that's really good about particles are good for stuff that's like randomized and doesn't look it doesn't look like it's an animated thing. It looks like it's a random like smoke and fire, stuff like that. You can also add this with this little arrow. Every time you see this little arrow, you always have like this randomization kind of like option. So if I do random between two constants, for example, that means some of them will be anywhere between like, let's say 1 and 0.12. So some of them will die really quick and some of them will last 1 second, and it'll randomly choose between them. And you can again control like these. So like some of them might last 20 seconds and some of them are dying instantly. So it just depends. The same with the speed, how fast they are. So let's do a really 0.01 and some, let's go like 50. So some of them are really slow and some of them are shooting off in the, oh, it's better if I go 3D. Some of them are shooting off in distance and some of them are being really slow. So again, if you imagine if I'm making something like sparks, where some things fly really fast and some things are really slow, that's exactly what I do. Same with size. All of these can be randomized. So some of them are small, some of them are bigger, and you can kind of see that that's happening. Rotation, same thing. Like flip rotation, same thing. Start color is interesting. Now, color won't do anything for us just yet because you see it's pink. I don't have what's called a texture on it. I don't have anything that it knows to render. So it doesn't, it just shows pink because it's like I'm drawing a blank. I'm not referencing anything. This is where I need to go down to renderer, and by default it's rendering this thing called a billboard. A billboard means no matter what way my camera is looking at it, it faces the camera. This sprite is actually just like a square quad, and it's always facing the camera. I can make that a mesh, for example, and I can make that like a, let's do the sphere or the capsule. And you can see that it's a capsule now instead. You can use a 3D object. Most of the time people will use a billboard. You can also do like stretch billboard, and that will stretch in the direction, like horizontal billboard, so that's flat. You can only see it from here, but you can't see it from here. And there's a bunch of different options, but billboard is the most common. So what I can do is here where it uses material, a material again is different to a sprite. It's not the same as a sprite. Let me make a completely brand new material just to show you. So I'll create material, and I'll just call this particle material. And I probably want something in that material. I can just use that right now, but it's not going to look, it's just going to be a white, oh sorry, even a gray, because of the lighting. It takes lighting. So it's just going to be basic, doesn't really do anything. But what I can do is I can add a sprite to that, or in this case, because it's 3D, I'll use a sprite as something called a texture. A texture is just another term for like a 2D image. The sprites are specifically for 2D and don't take lighting except for 2D lighting. Textures can be used on materials and then take 3D lighting. So let's have a look at that. So I need to create a sprite. Let me just make one. Should I make one in Photoshop, or do I have one already? I might just be able to find one already. Let's use Peaches as, I might make a copy of Peaches maybe. Can I use this as a cutout? Yes. So now I have Peaches flying all over the place. So that material, I set it to be cutout, and cutout means, or fade, it means that like it ignores all the transparent areas. So then it only shows the visible areas. So now we have Peaches flying out on the particle system. We can change stuff like metallicity and smoothness as well. So if we want it to be shiny looking, we can change all of that. But let's go back to particle system. So that's flying out, that's good. And this is where if I change the start color, this now makes it tint. So if you look at like this example here, that's the basic one, and this is a tinted color. So I can do that here. So I can do like random between two colors. Some of them tint red, some of them tint blue. But you can't really see it because it hasn't got lighting in the scene. Let me just add lighting. So light, let me do a directional light. And now you can see they're lit. So I don't know if you can see, some of them have different colors, and they're changing between the two different colors. So that's basically what I've done with this randomization. Gravity will make it fall. Oops, sorry. So now they're falling down. So this, again, if I wanted to make sparks, I might do something like this. Then the important ones, I'll go over like the important ones. Most of the rest of these are self-explanatory, but I'll go over the really important ones. So emission is one of the most important ones. That's like literally how many you're emitting at a time. So this is like 73 I'm emitting over time. I can also do bursts. So let me make this like 3. So it's like very few are showing up, and I can do a burst. So I can do a burst at like maybe every 2 seconds. I want you to fire out like 30. You see that happening? Or I can do like, 100, whatever. And that will keep running. So those are what the bursts do. I have shape. Shape is the angle of, the shape of the actual particle system. So you see right now it's a cone. So it's firing them all out in this direction. You can change like the angle. So I can fire them out like straight. The radius of the cone, like how far they show up from. And the arc is like how, there we go. But you can also have different, different shapes. So I can do a sphere They'll fire in all directions. I can do like a hemisphere that'll only fire in like in the hemisphere direction. You can even do like a circle, and these are better for 2D because in 2D you're only going to see it as a circle anyway. So I'll do a circle, and you can see now they're all like flat. So now I can go back to 2D because this actually makes a bit more sense. And the radius I can control, so it's like this small, for example. And they're all coming from there. Maybe I'll change the speed a little slower. And the start size a little smaller as well. Okay, so that should appear every few seconds. There we go. All right. So those two are really important. You can also change its velocity over lifetime. So velocity over lifetime, you can literally make this. Let me make them live a little longer. Where's their lifetime? And let me change the gravity so it's not quite as high. One is like, oops, sorry. Yeah, let's do it like that. Okay. Where is it? Velocity of a lifetime. So I can do a linear, which means like it literally just changes all the x by that exact amount over lifetime. I can randomize as well between the constants as always. But interestingly, I can also do an orbital. And orbitals are cool because they can basically make it like, can you see that rotating and doing stuff like that? So I can make things orbit around an axis and get pretty cool variations in how they work just by simply changing these. And that's how you can make like magic particle effects and stuff like that. True velocity of a lifetime. You can do color of a lifetime, and that's as simple as start them all a certain. So it works like this. So they start a certain color, let's say red. They end at let's say green or like purple, and they'll slowly go from red to purple. I unfortunately have not picked the best particle for this. Maybe I'll pick this one. Might be better. And can we change the camera so we can look at that particle system? Am I 2D mode? I want to be orthographic. Whatever. Particle system is here, right? Where is the particles? Are they really far away? Huh? Yeah. Oh, they're childed to the camera? Wait, what? Why are they childed to the camera? Oh, I'm selecting the particles. Let me make the size bigger. Can I not see the particle? Why can't I see the particle system? That's weird. Oh, you can see them. Oh, the particles are just tiny. Whoops. They're too small. There we go. And let me change the particle material. Let me just make sure it's the right particle. Yeah, that's better. What? Also, why is it not changing color then? That should be changing color. And I'm not quite sure why it's not. Albedo is correct. It's using that color. Smoothness is dropped down. Why are you not changing color? Not sure why. Huh? Oh. Okay, I'm not sure why it's not changing color, but yeah, I don't know why. That's weird. Okay, I'll deal with that inside. Okay, what else you can do? Size, lower, lower. Okay, so I can see them here. I can also do cool stuff like trails. And trails take another material. So in the trail material, let me just use the same one again, why not? And what they do is they draw a trail behind the particle. And you can control how that trail works. So the ratio is like how many of the particles will have a trail. If I do like 0.5, that means half of the particles will have a trail and half won't. It will also, you can do like color over lifetime. You can change the width of the trail. So like I can make that thinner. Oops, sorry, thinner. So the trails are thinner than the particles. You can see that happening there. You can also do lights, which is cool. I need to make a light though for this. So let's make a light, point light, and let's make the range less and the color like purple so we can tell what it is. And intensity, that's fine. So in the particle system, if I add a light, I can just tell it to use this light as a reference, and they should all be, you can kind of see it there. I don't know if you can see it. It's like lighting purple on some of them. And the ratio, let's make it like, and let me add a 3D cube in there so you can see it. Zero, zero, zero. So hopefully you can see the lights affecting. Is that working? Affecting the cube as they pass through the cube. No, it's just one second. Oh yeah, you can see that. Slowly moving. Can you see on the screen? Yeah? Okay. Oh yeah. Cool. Those are most of the most important things. You can also do crazy stuff like they can have collision. They can even add triggers. It's a little bit more complicated. You can have sub-emitters, which means particles will emit their own particles. So there's a lot of stuff you can do with it. Finally, one of the more interesting things you can do is you can do a texture sheet animation. So you can even animate the particles. So they'll go from like one sprite sheet to another. What sprites did we have? I think we had sprites here, did we? Didn't we add in a sprite for like the, I don't know if I have it here. No, I don't have the sprite. I don't have the sprite sheet. Nope, I don't, so I don't have to animate it. Let's make one really quickly. We're almost at time for the meeting. If you want to go for break instead, you can, because I'm not sure how long this will take, and we have only 15 minutes. Okay, I'm gonna save that file. Save as. Oh, sorry. Save as PNG desktop. Okay, I'm on a particle test. Import that. So instead of using, I'm going to make this a texture default. So it's a default texture type. And in the particle system, I'm going to use that in the particle. So if I show the particle now, it's going to play all those weird. It's going to be like the entire sprite sheet, which is kind of dumb. So you can kind of see that it's just that entire texture playing. But I can do a animation. So in the texture sheet animation, I can do a grid, and I just need to tell it how many tiles are in the X direction and how many tiles in the Y direction. And now you can kind of see them changing. So over lifetime, they change. So that's how you'd have a animated particle. Cool. All right, so we can